Welcome to our first sports jam of the spring season. I'm John Jacobson.
Hang on, are you sure it's spring, John?
No, I'm not.
It doesn't look like it. I'm Jay Wilcox. It has been one of the worst springs for high school sports in the northwest suburbs in the last 20 years. Today we'll have a few spring highlights along with previews of baseball, softball, and lacrosse.
And we'll talk with John Millea from the Minnesota State High School League about the challenges of our tough spring. Up first, baseball action from indoors at the Metrodome. It was good timing for Maple Grove to play Anoka. Not only were the outdoor fields not ready, but a snowstorm was hitting the area as they took the field. This is what it looked like outside the dome, but inside perfect baseball weather. In the bottom of the first with the bases loaded, Anoka's Ryan Sutterer rips a shot just fair. Ryan Rumpka and Jason Brumba score, and it's 2-0 Tornadoes. To the bottom of the second, Brumba's fly ball gets past the Maple Grove left fielder and rolls all the way to the wall. Brent Golubic scores for a 3-1 lead on the triple by Brumba. In the bottom of the sixth, Anoka threatening again with a runner on second, but Tyler Field gets the strikeout for Maple Grove, ending the frame. In the top of the seventh, last chance for the Crimson. Kyle Fleming works a 1-2-3 inning on the mound, and Anoka wins this one 3-1, spoiling Maple Grove's opener.
Maple Grove's bid to reach the state tournament last spring was ended by Totino Grace. The Eagles meeting Wayzata also in the Dome. Third inning, and Eagles pitcher Reggie Meyer finds himself in a jam with a runner on third. His wild pitch brings Nick Olmanson in with the game's first run. The bottom of the third, and the Eagles tie it up. Derek Lodermeyer with a ground ball to short. Mickey Leas' throw home is high. Brennan Swan scores, and it's a tie game. Later in the same inning, Matt Ludy laces a single to center field. Lodermeyer scores. The Eagles get 3 in the inning, and it's 3-1 Grace through 3. The bottom of the fifth, and the Eagles break it open. A.J. LaPanta drives the ball deep to right field. Ludy and Ben Smoody score on LaPanta's double, and Grace leads it 5-1. Later in the fifth, the base is loaded up, and Charlie Miller will unload them. He triples to the fence and right. It scores 3 more runs, and Tino Grace whips Wayzata 9-1 in the season opener for both teams. Hopkins was also in the state tournament last spring. The Falcons of Armstrong facing the Royals at the Metrodome. The top of the second, Armstrong's Jack Wibben with a base hit up the middle. It scores Danny Carlson, and Armstrong goes up 2-0. The Royals avoid further damage thanks to catcher Max Wiesner. He throws out Nick Snyder at second base to end that inning. In the bottom of the third, Hopkins with runners at second and third, but Wibben gets a big strikeout of Rory Ritz to get out of the jam. The bottom of the fifth, Hopkins puts together a 2-out rally. Ritz drops a hit just out of the reach of the shortstop. Jack Cherry scores to tie it. Ritz gets to second base on the throw home. And then he'll come in on a base hit by Eric Kramer as the Royals take a 3-2 lead after 5 innings of play. Nate Ellis does the rest. He settles down after a shaky start. Ellis goes the distance, giving up 3 hits. Hopkins wins over Armstrong 3-2. The Royals improved to 2-0.
The Cooper and Maple Grove girls lacrosse teams played their first game of the season under the bubble of the Maple Grove Sports Dome. The Crimson open the scoring. Ashley LaPointe finds Emmy Leonard, who bounces the shot in for a 1-0 lead. Ahead 2-0, the Crimson strike again here. Leonard passes to Michelle Lynch right in front. She buries it. Maple Grove's third goal of the first half. From the free position, Sam Rude wastes little time shooting and scoring. That goal makes it 6-0 Maple Grove. Helena Wynn sets up Lynch in the front of the goal late in the first half. Maple Grove gets a 9-2 lead into halftime. Second half, it's Wynn and Lynch combining for another goal. Maple Grove goes on to score a 14-2 win. A few hours later at the Maple Grove Sports Dome that same day, Totino Grace beat Cooper 11-3 in a North Suburban Conference softball game. Alex Reek had a 2-run homer for the Eagles. Emily Ianazzo recorded 2 hits and scored 2 runs.
In adapted softball, the powerhouse Robbinsdale Hopkins Mound West Tonka Robins opened the PI season against the Wayzata Minnetonka Lakers with adaptive sports pioneer Ed Prohofsky in the stands. After the Lakers get 2 runs, the Robins' Jeremy Jost chops a hit down the third baseline. Joe Dubasar scores, and Tyler Sarf follows him to home plate. The Robins score the maximum 5 in the bottom of the first to go up 5-2. It's another big inning in the second as Dubasar singles to left. Jimmy Forrest races in to score for the Robins as they build on their lead, and they aren't done in this inning yet. Still in the second, Mike Madsen will chop a hit to left. Sarf scores. Jost comes in behind him, and although his run doesn't count because they'd already reached the maximum of 5, Madsen circles the bases 2 for good measure. It's 10-2 Robins after 2. In the third, Charlie Whitmer hits it to the gap in left center field. Jordan Klein scores ahead of him, and Whitmer circles the bases for a first of his 2 home runs. The Robins cruise to a 16-4 win. John, I know it's real early, but the Robins look like a championship contender once again.
They always are, right? Next up in this spring opener of Sports Jam, we'll preview local baseball, softball, and lacrosse. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Jam. Just a handful of spring teams in the area have been able to play any games or matches so far.
But all of them have been working hard at practice for when or if the season really gets going. Here's an overview of a few sports, starting with baseball. In prep baseball, Totino Grace and Hopkins will look to defend section titles this spring. Grace has 4 starters and 9 returners in all from a team that knocked off Maple Grove to win the Section 5 3A tourney last season. It's a team with good pitching, too. Hopkins has just 1 starter back and lost some D1 players to graduation. They will be all new in the infield and outfield. The Royals do have a couple of returning pitchers and feel they have a deep staff. Maple Grove is also looking for a lot of young players to step in this spring after graduating a lot. They also have some pitchers to build around, along with returning center fielder Joe Franta. Champlin Park has a strong contingent back, and the experienced Rebels expect to contend well in the Northwest Suburban this season. Armstrong was young last spring, and they expect to move up the ladder in the Northwest Suburban too, with key players returning at catcher and middle infield spots. Park Center was in a lot of close games in the Northwest Suburban, and turning those tight losses into wins is the key for the Pirates, who have a very experienced junior class. Osseo is a young team that has a couple of underclassmen returning on the mound to lead the way as they also look to push toward the upper middle of the conference. Cooper's had a good run of late in the North Suburban. They'll have a lot of new faces in their lineup too, but can build around heavy hitter Nawan Norke. Wayzata lost to Hopkins in the finals in Section 6 last season, but the Trojans bring back many of their top hitters and have a solid, versatile lineup. Pitching injuries will hurt their depth on the hill, but it should be a strong year for the Trojans. Here's what a few local players expect.
I think we got the depth at pitching and also the offensive firepower to kind of beat anybody that's thrown at us, and so I think we'll do really well in our conference.
Definitely moving the runners a lot, like bunting, stealing. Every runner we get on base is important that we need him to score, so we're going to do a lot of small game, I'd say.
We got a lot of young guys coming up, and they look pretty tough. Our defense is looking good. I mean, it's early in the season, so like we haven't seen enough to tell like how good we're going to be, but I like what I've seen so far.
Meanwhile, on the softball diamond, a couple of the top teams from last season are back as strong as ever, while some will have to reload. A state runner-up last season, Maple Grove may be just as good this season. They have 6 starters back, including outfielder Abby Bonnell and catcher Jordan Mauk. The Metro Player of the Year pitcher Kaylee Sadler graduated, but LSU recruit Sydney Smith steps in for her. It's a whole new look for Park Center. After a great run of success that included 2 state class 2A titles, the Pirates graduated a great senior class and have only 1 starter back this year. Champlin Park had a school record for wins last season, and they have 6 starters returning. They will have to replace standout pitcher Katie Herron, who graduated. Wayzata also has 6 starters back from a Section 6 3A runner-up team. They'll be a strong contender in the Lake and in section play this spring. Hopkins has a new coach as former assistant Mark Peterson takes over. The Royals return just 2 starters as they look to rebuild this spring. Here's the outlook for some area teams.
We have a combination of each. We have strong fielders, we have strong pitcher just like last year, and we also have strong hitters. We may not have like the big hitting we had last year, but we can get a lot of clutch hits, and all those put together can get us the runs we need and the wins we need.
I'm super excited. I feel like we have a lot of young talent and a lot of younger players coming up, and we have a lot of good returning players coming back.
I told Amber during tryouts, I don't want to lose sections for the third time in a row. No, we're definitely looking to get to state this year, so it'll be exciting. It's definitely our goal.
I think we have some tricks up our sleeve. I don't know, we have some really talented younger players, and even though they might not have been starters, they're really strong. So.
With the exception of Champlain Park and Totino Grace, all of the local high school lacrosse teams play on turf fields. But even they haven't been able to get out on their fields much, if at all, this spring. The Armstrong boys were Northwest Suburban Conference co-champions last spring, with Champlain Park just one game back. The Falcons graduated a lot of talent from that 2012 squad and are counting on younger players to step up and fill key roles. It's a similar story at Maple Grove. The Crimson finished 4th in the conference a year ago, but graduated over a dozen seniors. They do return one of the state's top scorers in David Corazala. Here's what some of the players and coaches from these teams had to say about the upcoming season.
We're so young, we got a lot of work to do, but we're going hard every practice. We're getting better. Gotten a lot better since the start, so if we keep it up, I think we'll do just fine.
These kids are working hard every day, and it's kind of unbelievable to watch the improvement in the last 2 weeks. I mean, we've been conditioning. We've had 2 days for lacrosse, which is 2-hour practice, a break, and then 2-hour practice again. So we're getting into it so much every day, and it's really cool to watch how much we've actually improved.
Early in the year, people are still going to be getting their, chemistry with the lines figured out and whatnot. So I'm good friends with all the defensemen, so I think that'll definitely help us lock it down, and it'll be a good year.
It was the same team for the last 2 years, so last year was more about maintenance and trying not to get into the way of those experienced players. This year, we got great returning players, but fitting in and training those new up-and-coming players is, relearning for us as coaches.
Jay, it'll be interesting to see how well the younger players in both of those teams fare in varsity play this season. Among the private schools, Totino Grace was in the state tournament a year ago. Benilde St. Margaret's ranked #1 a good part of the spring, but they lost in their section semifinals. They've had a pretty strong tradition for several years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. On the girls' side, Armstrong and Champlain Park tied for the Northwest Suburban Conference title with Coon Rapids. The Falcons, a little bit younger team this year, while Champlain Park's field still covered with snow. Yeah. Teams like Wayzata and Hopkins look to bounce back from tough seasons on the field in 2012. And looking at a few other sports too, 3 teams in the area in the top 10 preseason in boys tennis. That includes the state runner-up last year, Wayzata, and also Maple Grove, who made their first state tournament appearance last year.
And in track and field, the Wayzata boys are looking to defend their state title, while the Hopkins and Osseo girls were in the top 10. Hey, no problems with the weather, though, for synchronized swimming and adapted softball, though, and golf. Who knows when those guys and girls will get out on the course. Well, up next, I'll look back at a dynamic duo from Osseo State girls basketball team this winter. And later, we'll hear from John Millea from the Minnesota State High School League about our tough spring.
Later this week, Osseo girls basketball star Janae Morton will play in the Girls All-Star Series. Her sidekick, Phyllis Webb, will aim for more hardware in the track and field season. John profiled the future college basketball teammates before the state tournament. Here's a look back at Webb and Morton.
They are a basketball-playing dynamic duo. Osseo seniors Janae Morton and Phyllis Webb are 2 big reasons the Orioles are poised to make another run at the state tournament.
They've meant a lot to this program. Their work ethic, the energy that they bring into the gym, that competitive nature that they have, that they want to go out every night and compete at a high level. They've been bringing that since they've walked into the program.
Janae averages just under 18 points per game and leads the Orioles in both steals and assists. Phyllis is the team's leading rebounder and averages over 16 points a game. The girls first played ball together back in 5th grade. Longtime teammates like this tend to develop a great connection.
When you play with somebody for a long time, they find you on the floor really well. And when you play one-on-one with them too, they know your strength and they know your weaknesses. So it really helps because if you're doing that in practice, you can help them strengthen their weaknesses and make their strengths stronger.
We connect on the court, and it's like we know each other's tendencies. I know everything Phyllis can do, what she can't do. She knows everything I can do and can't do. We know where to get each other the ball whenever we're on the court. So it's just really a great combo.
Though similar in size, each player has their own skill set. Skills that complement and help the other's game.
Little runner.
And each possess skills the other player wishes she had.
You see her when she's on a fast break. She could take off from the free throw line and beat a girl who was already at half court, so she's extremely fast. She can jump out of this gym, so we always expect Phyllis to get those rebounds, and that'd be a little nice trait to have.
She's been able to do passes out of nowhere that I didn't even think she could see me. She'll see like the littlest gap and get the ball through there, but I admire her for that because I can't even do that.
After a near miss as sophomores, the Orioles swept through the Section 5 tournament a year ago and finished as Class 4A runners-up to Hopkins at state. 7 of the top 10 players from that Osseo team graduated, leaving Janae, Phyllis, and junior Io Port as the only Orioles players with much varsity experience. The 2 seniors met the challenge both on and off the court and are great team leaders, albeit in different ways.
Their leadership styles are very different. Phyllis is very much of a lead by example, do what I do, not so much vocal. Janae is more out there, always been a little more verbal, a little more vocal, a little more goofy at times on things, and that's good too. So the 2 of them together, I think, have been a good balance for each other.
Phyllis first verbally committed to Eastern Michigan University last year. Not long after, Janae followed suit, and in November, both girls signed their letters of intent with the Eagles. They didn't really plan it that way.
It just happened. I mean, and it would be nice. I thought, it would be great to play with another teammate, somebody you already know, but it was a decision. I like the campus. I love Coach Verdi and his staff.
I'm going to Michigan, so it's a foreign place. I don't have family out there or anything, so being able to go out there with someone makes the stress of freshman year dull down a little bit.
Their future college friends will get to know Janae and Phyllis as individuals. Their Orioles teammates know them too, but sometimes others around school aren't so sure which girl is which.
Janae, she actually got royalty for our school, and people were pointing at me like, vote for her, vote for her. I'm like, I'm not Janae, and people think we look the same. I don't see it.
It happens all the time. People are like, oh, hi, Phyllis, or, think I'm Phyllis and ask me about track or something. Like, no, I'm Janae, and, it happens all the time. It's been happening since we've been here, so I guess just got used to it.
Meanwhile, the Orioles' opponents just see the 2 as double trouble and the top threats for an Osseo team determined to make another playoff push.
That feeling is right there, and I know every game we're just that much closer to being able to go on to state and have that experience again, so that's what we're looking forward to, and making them run in state. We don't want to just go to state, but we also want to make a run.
And they went on to place 4th at state. Janae and Phyllis also played volleyball for Osseo, while Phyllis ran the anchor leg on the Orioles state champion 4x200 relay team. John sits down with John Millea from the State High School League, next on Sports Jam.
Welcome back to Sports Jam, and our guest this week, John Millea from the Minnesota State High School League. He is their media specialist, and before that, worked for many years as a sports writer with the Star Tribune, and a lot of that covering prep sports. So, John, in your experience, how does this spring compare to anything that you've seen before?
This is unlike anything, John. And I've talked to people who go back 40, maybe 50 years. Nobody can remember anything like this, and let's hope we never, ever see anything like this again.
I talked with Osseo Activities Director Ray Kirch on their baseball field 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about that field being unplayable. Here we are, almost the last week in April.
Yeah.
It's still not playable, and
No.
now you get from it's kind of an annoyance to panic mode, I would think, at
I
some
think so.
schools.
Yeah, I think everybody's feeling has been, okay, once we get rolling here, we're going to play a lot of games in a short period of time. But when are we going to get rolling? That's the thing. And the fields, if there's frost in the ground, you got to wait. Schools that have artificial turf, the Minnetonka baseball field, that's the busiest place on earth. Everybody wants to get there and play. But and every sport's a little different. The golf teams, God bless the golf teams. I don't know what they're going to do. Some of those teams, especially up north, they will hardly have played before it's time for subsection and section tournaments. So I think it's a matter of when but we just don't know when, and we haven't for so long now.
We cover sports just here in the northwest suburbs, but you look at the northern part of the state. How are they doing for spring sports in some of their fields?
Yeah, it's a disaster. We think it's bad here. You go up north and there's nothing going on. I've talked to ADs, from Crookston to Thief River Falls across the Iron Range, and they're worried about just completely losing some of their spring sports. On our social media, Twitter and Facebook, there have been a lot of questions. Can we stretch the seasons up? Can we move the state tournaments back? And we really can't, because all the facilities are rented. If you move the state tournaments back, then the section tournaments, all the facilities for those have to be changed, and it's a logistical nightmare, so that can't happen. It's too bad.
Let's move off of spring sports and look at section reassignments. This is something that the league does every couple of years, look at all the section, all the activities. So they change now for the next 2 years. Anything that jumps out to you in any different sport? Well,
I think it depends on, where you live and how it affects you. To me, the thing that I always look at is who's opting up. And football is the one we've heard about so many times with Totino Grace and the new Class 6A, which began last year. That kind of jostled things a little bit. But to my understanding now, the way, in specifically football, Brainerd was like the smallest 6A team. I think they're going to go back to 5A now, the way the new alignments are. There's enough other 6A teams that Brainerd will go down to 5A, which I'm sure they're happy with. I don't know. I kind of stay out of that. I'm not in charge of that. I'm so glad I have nothing to do with that and those decisions. And it's all based on geography and enrollment. I mean, it's a huge, huge formula. That happens elsewhere in our office, which I'm very happy about. But it's a great topic. Every 2 years, these things change. And for most schools, not much changes. For a lot of schools, nothing changes. But for some schools, when you have massive change, if all of a sudden your section you shift over, now you're playing teams that you weren't in your section for at least 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, whatever. It can be a big change.
Final question about the Metrodome. Last year for the Vikings, but also last year for state soccer, semifinals and finals, and the state football playoffs. So what's the plan for the next 2 years after that until the new Viking Stadium is built?
Look, soccer and football will be at TCF at the University of Minnesota. We know that. We're not. I don't think the dates have maybe been set in stone yet. Probably for this coming fall they are. But the season's probably going to be moved up. We might be finishing before Thanksgiving, which if we're outdoors, that makes sense. And we're probably looking at 2 years of a construction process before the new stadium's open. So it's going to be different. There might be a week between the state semifinal football games and the prep bowl. There may be a round taken out of the playoffs at some point just to compress the season. Football could start earlier. All these things are kind of in the works, but it's going to be a change. It's going to be a big change for a couple years, and then hopefully once the new stadium opens, hopefully there's no construction delays. It's 2 years, and we're back in there, and just the way it used to be, just at a beautiful new stadium.
John, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
John Millea, the media specialist for the Minnesota State High School League, and hopefully we'll be playing spring sports here soon in Minnesota. We'll take a break and come back and wrap up Sports Jam after this timeout. Follow 12 Sports replays and live events on Twitter, Facebook, and live stream. Watch your favorite high school athletes performing live on your computer or mobile device. Link to us on 12.tv.
Brooklyn Center police say she dressed like a nurse but acted like a thief.
We've been collecting these donations at each of the 150 communities that the train has stopped at all across the country.
Really low temperatures keeps the salt and chemicals from doing their job.
From this day forward, they'll have somebody who monitors that door, checking the IDs of anybody who tries to enter.
Frantic in, pass off, one-timer, shot to goal. Well, that will do it for this week. We're hoping for better weather ahead.
Spring athletes, hang in there. You will get some games in, just maybe not the full schedule the way it's looking so far here. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on Sports Jam.